This is happy little, nope, that's the next class. Sorry about that. This is Practice Makes Perfect. Make that better. The Honorable Lady Anne Elizabeth Morley is your instructor.
Good morrow, my fellow scribes and all you other people, as certain people have said in certain strange films. I am Anne Elizabeth Morley. I am the scribe, the personal scribe to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, and not the Queen Elizabeth who just lost her husband. I am here in my own scriptorium in my private rooms in Hampton Court Palace, and I wish to share with you some of my ideas about how to practice. And these are not just my ideas, they've been taught to me by my very illustrious teacher, and I wish to help you, hopefully, by sharing. So, mind your P's and Q's, and let's get on with the show, as it were. Come on. All right, play. There we go. Maybe not. Of course, I no longer have a cursor. How do I get out of here? There. All right. Practice does make perfect, but perfect is an illusion. So let's think practice makes better. I am from the Barony of Unserhofen in the Outlands. Why practice? Well, good illumination and decoration deserves good calligraphy. Illumination and decoration is only half of your piece of art. Therefore, if you have poor calligraphy, it really detracts from your most beautiful artwork. So I find that if you can bring up your level of calligraphy, your whole scroll will look so much better. Your attitude is everything. So I would like to make my scrolls look better. That's brilliant. But unfortunately, I hear too much, I hate calligraphy. Well, if that's your idea, then perhaps you need another class. Calligraphy is a Zen thing. And if you enjoy being in a zone, then do your best here and enjoy the calligraphy. I think you might find that this is helpful. And perfect does not mean perfect. Or maybe I should say that the other way around. Perfect does not mean perfect. Learn your script, which helps you develop muscle memory, develop a critical eye, and then perfect your scripts. If you have questions, by the way, be sure to ask. What does good practice mean? Well, frequency. Practice often. The more often you practice, the less you lose in between practices. Now, mind you, I understand we don't all have lots of time. So if you need 15 minutes, 20 minutes, if that's all you have, that's marvelous. It keeps your hand and your eye in tune. Concentrate. Try to keep everything out but your calligraphy, and then analyze what you're doing. Take a look at this piece. And I put this up because it's embarrassing to me I love this piece, yet when you look at it close, look at the word quiet. The E sags in quiet, the second E, terribly below the line. That is unacceptable to my eye. And yet there was nothing I could really do about it. I was running late. It happens. So this went out, and I hope the recipient forgives me for this dragging E. So plan your practice time. You start by analyzing the last bit of calligraphy from the day before's practice. And then you write critically, and you will notice as we go along how I mark what I don't like as I go along, so that I can go back, find it very easily. Then when you're finished with that, don't spend all of your practice time doing critical writing. Write fluidly, just write. Just enjoy writing whatever you can, and enjoy. You don't necessarily have to write your scroll script, just write anything.
I was about to ask, do we choose words or sentences or letters? What's better to practice with?
Oh, that's a brilliant question. When you're first learning the script, letters, and we will go through, as a matter of fact, I will demonstrate that for you. Then you can either go to words, just words, or sentences, prose, whatever. If I'm just sitting in front of the telly and doodling, I will write the girl's name starting with A, boy's name starting with A, fruit starting with A, whatever, go through the alphabet so that I get a chance to practice each letter. It's rather fun to do that than doing your whole sentences of poetry, your favorite novel, whatever works for you. Does that answer?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. So choose the script that matches your project, that matches the time period for your chosen illumination style. So I often tell the story, if you are a Viking, would you wear the Elizabethan collar like I have on? No, it would not work. So make sure they match. Choose a good exemplar. That is a page that tells you how to write the letters. For those of us who are just learning, just copying from a manuscript isn't necessarily the best way to go. So use a good exemplar. Drogan's medieval calligraphy has the most exemplars in the medieval scripts that we use in the society. There are other books, but this one has everything. Use good practice paper, even practicing. If you use bad practice paper, your ink will feather. So good practice paper does not allow it to feather, and it allows for good thicks and thins. Now, what's a thick and thin? If you look carefully at this, for instance, let's see, on the top line that you can see excellence, the C has a very thin line and then thicker lines. You want the difference between thicks and thins. Looking down at the very bottom, college, my ink, I believe, got too thick at that point, so the O does not have thins. It stands out as being very dark. So what ink to use? Never use waterproof ink. It clogs up the nibs, the metal nibs that we use. Waterproof ink is meant for fountain pens. So if you use a fountain pen, go for it. If you don't, try not to use waterproof ink. Even if you have the practice of washing your pen out constantly, still not a good idea. So I recommend Higgins Eternal, which is not maybe as black as you might like, but it's a very good ink and not very expensive. It must be Higgins Eternal though, because other Higgins inks are waterproof. Sumi ink is excellent, but you must water it down a bit or it's way too thick. Gouache also, it needs to be the consistency of table cream. Now, in period, maybe Sumi ink was around, but oak gall ink was definitely around. I don't use oak gall ink a lot because it eats metal nibs, literally. And it also will eventually eat the paper or the parchment that you're writing on. So if you want this to last for eternity, maybe Sumi would be, or gouache would be your ink. Use a large nib size when you practice. This page is 8.5 by 11. So you can see I wrote big. The reason is it's easier to write the letters and it's much easier to see what you were doing and be able to correct it. Anything that went wrong. If you notice, if you can see on here, down 6, 7 lines, thou, it is crossed out, the O is crossed out, Sphinx is all marked up. I mark these as I go along so that I know where to look to go back. So this really helps to use the larger nib size. Then if you're writing in a small nib, great, move down gradually if you can, but move down, start with that large nib. Line your paper. Now, I know that medieval scribes let their writing hang above the lines. That is not necessarily something that we can do. We do not practice 8 hours a day or more. We simply don't have that time. So trying to get straight lines without a baseline, without a waistline is very, very difficult. Only the absolute best scribes can do that well. So line your paper. A mechanical pencil works best. Give yourself margins, even on your practice. It looks so much better. It's easier on the eye when you go back to and analyze it. You want your margins on all sides and it to be at least 1/2 inch. So, boy, that's hiding, isn't it? Mark edges.
I'm sorry.
lining.
Another question.
Yes.
Do you recommend practicing in pre-lined paper, or it's better that we line it?
Ah, good question. Only practice in pre-lined paper if it's lined to match what your script requires. So each script requires a different interlinear space. And that's the space, of course, between the lines. This space or this script that you've got here, the uncial, is equal, usually. Sometimes the interlinear space is larger, but most of the time it's equal. Humanist is never equal. It looks too tight. It will look like knitting and be almost impossible to read. Gothic is equal. Letters and interlinear are equal. So you need to have the right spacing. So if you can find a line generator that will allow you to make the line size and interlinear space that you want, perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
Thank you.
You're welcome. What I suggest here at the bottom that you can't really read, draw out your lines, then photocopy what you've got lined onto really good paper so that you're not relining each time you start to practice. So that makes it a lot less time consuming and a
Oh,
lot
perfect.
less annoying.
Perfect. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
I was,
So
oh,
yes,
my apologies, Your Ladyship. I was about to chime in that if you type into an internet search calligraphy practice paper, a lot of times you'll find people who have made pre-made templates for various scripts, and you can print those out and use for practice as well.
excellent. Thank you very much. Make certain that they are correct, because every once in a while you'll find somebody who has done this hard work but doesn't necessarily know that there needs to be more space in humanist or a lot in Carolingian. So, but that's a brilliant thing. Thank you so much. Also, mark your page with the script and the nib make. So for instance, if you're using Mitchell or Browser or whatever, and with the size that you use so that you can go back to this days later and you can pull out the right nib and practice the right size. All right, so you want to practice letters first and similar shapes. Rather than the alphabet straight through, practice them in groups, the round, the straight, the diagonal, and the uncommon. And by all means, don't practice a whole page of one letter. You will go insane, and I will not be responsible for your insanity. All right, so I need to change my screen so that I can demonstrate for you. Where is it? There it is. Right. I have this marvelous new camera, which I love, and I hope it works for you. So, practicing, this is.
And Elizabeth, you're
Yes.
still screen sharing. We're not seeing your second camera.
Oh. All right. So I'm not sure how to change that.
Go ahead and stop share
All right.
and then choose share screen again and choose your camera.
Aha.
There
That
you
better?
go. Perfect.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So I have this piece pre-lined for my particular nib, and I'm ready to practice my alphabet. So I start with the round letters. O. O is the basis for almost all script shapes. And that is dreadful. Of course, because I'm demonstrating and it's the first one of the day. So there, that's way too steep. Needs to be 30 degrees. So there's my O, more or less. Then I want B. The exemplar will show you how to make these letters. For instance, the B, see, has that triangle there. It is not done like this in this particular script.
What hand are you using?
I'm sorry?
What hand are you
Oh,
using?
this is humanist. So that is incorrect. Big no. You want it to have that open space there. So I keep going through my round letters. I'll show you a trick with G. G does not go to the baseline. Go there. Go there. And the tick. Notice the bottom is wider than the top, and it never wants to go to the baseline unless you're in Gothic. And Gothic has different rules for everything. So straight letters, I'll skip to those. Making sure your letters are straight, and in this one, nice round top. M being two N's. Notice my speed. I don't use speed. That's because I can't write well. Nobody can write good calligraphy with speed. You might be able to write slightly faster, but otherwise it ends up being handwriting, which is not calligraphy. Your diagonals, you want to change your pen angle from 30 to 45 on the first one, back to 30 on the second one. That way you keep the same density of line. And then there are the weird ones. S, which is usually the bane of most people's existence. And
I agree.
Yes. Question?
No, I just said I agree about the S. The S being the bane of our existence.
Thank you. I'm so glad we have closed captioning. I can read what you say. So there's our A. Notice straight spine. And I also need to show you one back a ways. Z, otherwise known as Z to you people who live across the pond. Change from 30 degrees to 0 degrees. 0 is exactly that, straight. And then back to 30. Otherwise, you have this hideous thing that looks like, come on, it looks like it's going to fall over. That is a no-no. All right, so let me see if I can go back. And are you looking at my PowerPoint now?
Nope, we're still seeing your camera. Stop share And then
All right, I will, oh, come on. I will do that again. And
share screen and the PowerPoint one.
the right one.
Perfect. That's perfect.
Oh, yay. All right, so again, practice a line of the letters. If you're happy with them, not even a full line, but definitely not a whole page. Practice pangrams. Those are those marvelous little phrases that don't always make any sense, but have every letter of the alphabet in them. Here are two, my favorite, Sphinx of Black Quartz, Judge My Vow, and my soon to become favorite, 5 Boxing Wizards, Jump Quickly. So they really help. If you notice there, I've got a repetition of Sphinx. And if you can see on the bottom quartz, there I've marked where I'm not happy with bits, so I can go back and correct them. So analyze your practice, what you look for. And now I need to do this jump back, and hopefully I know how to do this, so I won't have to go through the rigmarole of help again. Okay.
That's perfect.
Yay!
Okay, good, it worked. All right, so check your pen angle. First, get more ink on your pen. You have to remind it that the ink is wet. Pen angle in this has to be 30. So you want it to be that and not that. So look up here. Yay, this one not so yay. That one I tilted. Bad, bad, bad. So that's checking your pen angle. Your letter shapes, check them against your exemplar and look carefully. Does the S really have a curve on the top that goes, oh, ink, come on, that goes down, like a lot of scripts that you will, or fonts that you will see, or is it flat? Guess what, it's flat. C is the same thing. So don't think you know how to draw a nose. You have to think about exactly what you are seeing in that nose. Same with your letters. So whether or not you're vertical or sloped, check this out here. That's actually a little bit more vertical than I thought. This one is better. That one has a slight back slant. This one here you can see has a distinct back slant, which is shame on me. So you want to watch that. Whether you're even at the baseline and waistline, baseline being the bottom, waistline top. Now here, both the N and the M, I don't have it exact. So I need more warm up today. And you will notice that some of the letters, S and C, usually go slightly outside the lines. So closely looking at your exemplar will tell you that. Then letter spacing, how close you write your words. And I have no idea why this word came to mind, but we will just go with the flow. All right. Notice we've got a larger space between P and T than O and P. Probably shouldn't be quite that. Notice that the T is, or the I is really snuggled up to the T, but there's this big space here between I and C. That's correct because I and J are narrow letters and you need to give them more space. That's one reason it is highly inadvisable to type out a script and or type out your whatever you're writing and then put it underneath and try to copy it, because fonts are almost exclusively not spaced right. Then letter spacing, or not letter, word spacing. Come on, this ink obviously needs more water. So you need space in between your words, but not huge space in between your words. You don't want to see rivers of white going down your page. If you see rivers of white, you need to rearrange slightly. Any questions about that before I get rid of this? All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your ladyship, I'm sorry, I actually had a question.
Yes. What?
So for me, holding the pen is difficult because of how I was taught how to hold a pencil.
Ah.
And yeah. So my question is that when you're trying to work on the angles, do you have any like recommendation? Because that's been my biggest issues when I've been trying to practice is the angles don't end up looking right because of how I end up holding my writing. And for now, I've been practicing with a calligraphy marker so I don't waste my ink all too much. So if you have any suggestions for that,
I certainly do. When you have your pen, let's see, instead of trying to adjust, say this is your grip or whatever your grip happens to be, don't try to adjust this way. That will give you lots of grief. Adjust by rolling the pen in your fingers so that you get it the right angle. Does that help?
Absolutely. I didn't realize it was that simple. Thank you.
It really is that simple. And you want to be sure that you are not gripping so hard that you cannot turn it. You don't want to have a death grip on it. You will be sorry. You'll be very unhappy. Anything else?
Yes, your ladyship. How long do you think that it would take to develop the analysis part? Because I would assume that it takes time to be able to recognize, okay, I made a mistake in here or here. Does it take a long time?
Good question. Good question. I'm not sure how to answer that actually. The best thing that you can do is look at what you've got and compare it back to what you were seeing in the exemplar, or if you are looking at a manuscript that you are copying, try to just really look and see what it is you are actually seeing. Are you seeing this B with the triangle there, or are you seeing the flat bottom? Are you seeing, like I showed you in that one with the E that drooped so badly, are you seeing things that aren't in line, that sort of snake around the page?
Because I can see when you point out where you made the mistake, but if I see it, like, to me it looks perfect, but once you point it out, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it all is in the looking, trying to decide what you're seeing. Oh, and I know one great thing. I was taught in a drawing class, turn your work upside down and then turn the exemplar upside down. Then you are not looking at a letter, you are looking at a shape. And so you can see if that shape matches the exemplar shape. You can see where it should be different. You can see where your white space is too big or too small. So I highly recommend the upside down thing. I think it will help to train your eye. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
You're most welcome. Anything else?
Your ladyship, I'm trying to learn a few different hands, and I wonder if it's better to practice
Oh, I've lost you.
Oh. I'm wondering if it's better to practice one hand at a time, or if I can intermingle them, say practice unseal on Monday and on Tuesday.
That is really fantastic question. And the answer is try to practice one at a time. Now, if you are having to do multiple scrolls at the same time and they're in different scripts, obviously you're going to need to practice both. But try, especially when you're really learning, try to stick to that one script. It will make your life easier, because if you look at the difference between that O and that O, this one is unsealed. See how much wider it is. If you are going back and forth, you're liable to drag this O into that script and that O into this script. So practice in bunches. Okay?
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Your ladyship, again, I'm sorry.
No.
You mentioned paper, but did you mention, you said good paper, but what is good paper?
What is good paper? Good paper is not printer paper. Printer paper will most likely let the ink feather. And by feathering means soak into the paper and go out in the fiber, getting thick. Good paper is usually, it has a higher cotton content. I buy practice paper from, sorry for the advertisement, John Neal booksellers. You could also get it from Pencil and Ink Arts. It's marvelous. It's wonderful to practice on. It's clean. It gives you what you need to see to make your calligraphy better.
Nice practice paper.
So you buy it like that, practice paper?
I'm sorry?
It's called practice paper?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
There are pads that you can get at your local art dealer or Hobby Lobby, some of which work, and some of which are absolutely dreadful, even though they say calligraphy on them, which my student Aspasia and I found out this week, I believe it was, that that particular brand, and I have no idea what it was, but it was marketed as calligraphy paper, just sucked the ink in and made it all fat and ugly. So, anything else?
Another suggestion would be mixed media art paper sometimes. And you want to look for hot press.
Definitely. Thank you. Hot press. Think about an iron. Iron smooths out your fabric and iron smooths out your paper. Cold press gives a marvelous texture, but it's not period in the least.
What
So,
about hot press watercolor paper?
I'm sorry.
What about hot press watercolor paper?
It's wonderful. It's very good. The reason I don't use it is because it's extraordinarily difficult, if not impossible, to correct. So if you make a mistake, you're rather stuck with it, which is why I use pergamonata, because it is much easier to scrape off your mistake and then smooth it over. But yes, watercolor paper is great. Bristol board is great. Shall I go on? All right. I see heads nodding, so that's a good thing. Are we back at the right screen?
We're seeing your SharePoint, or we're seeing your document.
Ah, okay, good. So we went through this, how you analyze, and it just takes practice. Then some last words, and I've got quite a few last words for you. Don't stutter. And I apologize to any of you who might struggle with that in speech. Stuttering in calligraphy is the same thing. If you are writing prose or poetry and you hit a letter that you did really poorly, don't do 3, 4, 5 T's. Don't even do 2 T's. Keep going. Mark it as you go if you are doing your analytical practice, but don't repeat those letters. That does not help you. If things are going poorly, check your tools. I have to be reminded of that all the time when I go to my calligraphy masterclass. I think that, oh, it must be me. Well, sometimes it's me. Sometimes right now, this nib is not working well and my ink is too thick. My paper quality might not be good. In this case, it's wonderful. You might need to sharpen your nib with a bit of fine grain sandpaper or an Arkansas stone. Your ink, again, might be too thick, so it blobs on the paper. And I don't know if you can notice this or have noticed this, but write on an angle whenever possible. Write when you are at least 30 degrees on an angle. If you notice drawings of the scribes in manuscripts, always show them writing on a steep angle. There's a reason for that, and it works. The reason is gravity. If you are writing flat on a table, your ink flows out much too fast, no matter what. And you won't get those nice thicks and thins. So if you can get yourself a desk, tilt desk, that's grand. But if you can get yourself a board and put a couple of bricks behind it, and then you will probably be in very good shape to at least be writing on a bit of a tilt. It will also help your back and shoulders. You'll be thanking me. If things continue to go poorly, take a break. Don't keep going. You'll just get more and more upset, and it'll get worse and worse and worse. So take a break. Sit with your dogs, cats, family, whatever. Have a nice cuppa. So mark up your practice sheets. On the left here, you see a manuscript that I printed. It's from the British Library. That is artificial uncial, which I don't recommend unless you're an absolutely amazing calligrapher. It's extremely difficult. And I'm not saying that I'm amazing. I am saying that I'm trying to learn it. And if you notice over there on my part, there's a lot of marks. I notice right off the bat that B and L in black is too close every single time. So you want to check those things. Those are all the types of analysis. Good letters. I try to write happy signs, happy faces on, so I really know, wow, I did that well. Otherwise, you saw how I marked up my page. Trace a manuscript printed from the web. This one in particular is a wonderful example, although you can't see it. It's a wonderful example of humanist. Print it and trace it. Start with the pencil and trace it in a pencil. Then get a nib that matches the same size and trace that. And then try to copy it rather than tracing. That helps immensely. That's how the scribes learned in the Middle Ages. And again, please don't try to write over computer generated writing. Come on.
We have just a couple of minutes left if somebody has some final questions, and then I'm going to have to close the room. So.
Your ladyship, I mentioned that I've been practicing with a calligraphy marker. And I guess my question is that one of the things that I started doing was using graph paper to kind of help me with my shapes. Like I definitely am going to start moving on to, like you suggested, of course, nibs and ink for practice, but is it also okay to like still do the calligraphy practice on the graph paper with the calligraphy marker if that's helping me learn my shapes and angles still?
Yes, it is. Graph paper is extremely helpful. And if the graph paper is of a sufficient quality not to suck up your ink, use it with your nib and ink as well. Some graph paper works beautifully that way. It helps to work on your verticals. Specifically, if you have trouble with, if you're supposed to have vertical B's, ascenders and descenders, it helps to have that graph paper. If you are working on say Chancery italic, which is very late Renaissance periods, don't use graph paper. You can make your own and draw the lines in at the correct angle, but it's got a slant. So the graph paper, it won't help you. The markers, I understand using them, but they don't allow you to see the thicks and the thins very well. So it's hard to see if your pen angle is really correct when you go back to analyze.
All right, that makes sense. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Be sure to date your work so that you can see your improvement, and photograph your finished pieces so that you can look through early pieces to late pieces and see, wow, I've improved brilliantly, or okay, I need to improve this or that or the other thing. And that is my last slide. And yes, we are almost 5 till. So anything else? Thank you so much for being a most attentive audience and students and asking the most brilliant questions. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Your Ladyship, for your time and your expertise. We appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Ladyship and Elizabeth, and to all of the participants. I've put a link to the schedule if you need that to know where you're headed next. All of the rooms should be opening in the next minute or two. Be patient, some classes may run a little long. We're trying to keep them on schedule though, no SCA time. And everyone have a wonderful day.
Learn lots.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for participating.
Sending lots of love from Artemisia, Your Ladyship.
It's good to see all of you from all over the known kingdom, known world, excuse me.